What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel. We have made it to the end of July, and in today's video, I'm taking all of the original 2019 movies that I watched in the month of July and placing them on their own individual tiers, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to rank them. Which movie was my most favorite, which movie was my least favorite, and of course, I need you guys in the comments down below. Did you enjoy the month of July? Did it live up to the hype for you, or were there just too many movies that felt like disappointments? We're going to discuss all of those things today. So today's list is going to be very interesting because before I was only doing movies that released that month, but over the last 2 months I've been incorporating movies that I caught up on from earlier in the year. They're still a 2019 release, but I didn't get to see them on demand, on Blu-ray, in the theater until this specific month. So we have 4 movies out of the 18 that we're talking about that did not technically release in July. I watched them in July, so I wanted to include them on this list, and this will be my first time talking about them anywhere. Didn't review them, did not discuss them prior, and let's get into this list. And we are starting with the first movie on this template, and that is the DC animated film Batman Hush. This is a film that I was anticipating just because of the beloved graphic novel, and it is a movie that I did find divided fans a bit more than DC animated movies normally are, because normally they're very good or very authentic to what the comic book / graphic novel brought us. This film, it swerves in different directions. It does things that maybe the original story did not do. I still think it did them in a heartfelt and loving way, and it did exclude some things that maybe could have made it a bit longer of a movie, even into a series. I think it did it in a way that made the film feel a bit more compact than it would have, because that's a big story you're trying to tell in 90 minutes, and the fact that they excluded things, I'm like, I understand that. The fact that they changed things, I'm like, yeah, I was on board with that decision with this particular story, but that's the thing that's been dividing fans, is the fact that they're changing up the villains so much from the original story is absolutely going to make some people upset. I still enjoyed the movie because, you know, they focused on Batman and Catwoman's relationship. It's a bit more adult than their other films, and the action was really cool, and because of that, I'm going to put Batman Hush on the okay tier, because at the end of the day, I think it's an okay DC animated movie. The next movie on this list is Crawl, and if you would have asked me before this month, Austin, where do you think Crawl is going to be? I would have probably said bad or awful, and you know what? Slap on the wrist. That's all my bad. Crawl surprised the heck out of me. Sure, it's over the top. Sure, it's silly. Sure, it focuses a bit too much on a conversation here or a storyline here, but when you're getting what you paid that ticket for, and at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Does the movie entertain me? Was it worth the watch? And was it a really good time in the theater? Crawl strikes all of those boxes, and because of that, I'm putting Crawl on the good tier, man. Crawl is a good movie. Really surprising. Did not anticipate it to affect me the way that it did. Next up on this list is Spider-Man Far From Home. I was so pumped for this movie. I wanted it to be good. It was good, but it was not just good. In my opinion, it was great. I thoroughly love Far From Home, still in my top 10 of this year. It is just one of those superhero movies that you have a lot of fun with. The villain was great. The acting is awesome. The beginning of the movie, the first 15 minutes, like I said in my review, it started out just a tad bit slow, and I wasn't as on board with the humor as I wanted to be, as I was in the first Homecoming movie, but you know what? As soon as the film kicks in, and you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, it picks up, it gets intense, it gets epic, and 2 of the best post-credit scenes I have ever seen. Next up is Midsummer, however you say it. This movie freaked me out. It completely and utterly freaked me out, but in the best way possible. It's one of those that's going to be completely divisive. You're either going to be placing it on the awful tier or the awesome tier. That's a lie. I do know some people that enjoyed it but didn't love it quite as much as me. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I think Midsommar is one of those movies. It just sticks with you. A lot of it has to do with the filmmaking. The first act of the film is one of the best acts of any horror movie I've watched in the last 3 or 4 years. It does go off the rails. It does get a bit weird towards the end. But the performance from Florence Pugh and really Jack Reynor, both of them, they're fantastic. The movie is just full of everything I love about filmmaking. It's all in there. It's a bit too wacky for some, but I'm putting it on the awesome tier. The next movie I'm talking about is the the ever so famous The Lion King. And you know, this is one that I feel like audiences are loving a lot more than critics. Critics kind of bashed it more than I anticipated, especially you have Jon Favreau, you have Disney, you have all of this voice talent. Then you have audience members. It gets like an A+ cinema score. I mean, that is incredible. And I know a lot of friends who love the movie. I thought it was exactly what I never thought I would say about the live-action Lion King movie. I thought it was okay. And the reason why I say it was okay is because visually, technically, CGI, all of that, it is spectacular. It's a monumental feat that will never be reached again with any movie until the next one comes out. But it is one that kind of changed the game. And then you get into the slightly underwhelming story, and not the story because it's the exact same story as the original, but just the way it was told and the way that it did not impact me in the way that I needed it to. It didn't affect me. It didn't leave me walking out of the theater going, that's what I imagined when I first saw that trailer. I didn't feel that. I was underwhelmed with certain aspects. Visually, great. There was a tiny void in my soul walking out of the theater just because I wanted it to completely and utterly blow me away. Didn't do that, but I still thought it was okay. Next up, we have Secret Obsession, and this is the Netflix movie that no one should ever watch because it was really bad. And the reason why I say that, listen, I love Brenda Song. I liked the premise. Didn't watch a trailer going in, although I did watch the trailer afterwards, and I realized this trailer ruined the entire plot of the film. But even without watching the trailer, I still predicted every single thing that was going to happen in that movie and every story beat that made its way into Secret Obsession. Just odd character decisions, weird filmmaking, awkward transitions, characters that would get into the shower and take a shower for 30 seconds, come out completely dry and already almost dressed, like decisions that just don't need to make it into our homes on Netflix, yet it did. Secret Obsession was an utter disappointment for me, even though I didn't expect that much going in, and it is truly the first awful movie that I watched in July. I would not recommend it. Next up is the first film that we are talking about that did not come out in July, but I finally got to see Gloria Bell, an A24 movie, a movie I was very much anticipating. It's just one of those that I missed in the theaters, and you know what? It was okay. It was absolutely okay because I'm putting it on the okay tier. I did want it to be better than it was. You have the banner of A24. You have Julianne Moore in the lead role, who was very good, and she did strip down and she gave a very raw and natural performance. It felt like a character that came naturally to her. I see why she took the role. But it really is just a story about a woman who is trying to find love. She can't necessarily find it at first, and she's just living life. And sometimes those are the best movies. Sometimes those are movies that underwhelm you, leave you a bit cold. It didn't leave me cold, but it did leave me a bit stale on what it could have been just because of the studio, the people involved, and the talent on screen. Everyone was really good. Gloria Bell, the movie's okay. I just wanted a bit more from it. Next up is Kidnapping Stella, yet another Netflix movie that underwhelmed me, disappointed me. I needed something more from it than what I actually got. It is a foreign film. It is one that I anticipated to be good because it is a remake of a movie that people hold close to their hearts. I've never seen the original. I was interested to see what Kidnapping Stella would do differently from the original premise, but to me, it looked like it ripped off the original premise. It incorporated really familiar and frankly predictable elements of story beats that I've seen before, and it just gave me a movie that was a bit boring and horribly filmed action. It was short. It's not a long film, but it feels long. And that's when you look at a movie and you go, oh no, the fact that it's only 90 minutes, yet it feels like you're spending 2.5, 3 hours on it. It's not good. Kidnapping Stella was a bad movie, and it's another one on Netflix I just wouldn't recommend. The next movie on this list is The Mustang. This has been one of my most anticipated movies for quite a while, and it finally, after like a month and a half of it being in theaters and then leaving theaters, came to my local art house theater, the one that I normally watch movies like this, The Art of Self-Defense, and hopefully The Farewell in very soon. But I finally got to see it, and you know what? It was another one that I needed a bit more from to be completely satisfied. I loved the performance. I love the direction. It's one of the best looking movies I've seen this year in terms of shot selection and just living in the area that they were living in. The fact that it's just about a guy who is trying to rehabilitate himself. He starts finding this niche, really this connection with his horse. He falls in love with his new life, and you can tell he's changing as a character. It's interesting, it's intriguing, and the story arc at the end of the day was good. A bit slower than I needed it to be, but I still thought it was a really good movie. Almost to that great tier, didn't quite get there, but it is one that I would recommend to to pretty much everyone who loves a good, artistic, and just beautiful movie visually. One of the best looking movies I've seen all year, like I said. Next up, we have another A24 film, and this is Skin. I just reviewed Skin a few nights ago, and it did underwhelm from the sense of being an A24 movie. Yet another A24 film that did not live up to the hype. Not that there was a lot of hype for Skin, but it's all about a guy who is trying to escape this horrible life that he has been living. Granted, he was raised to believe all of this and to live this way. He starts to escape it. What really sold me on this movie was the performance from Jamie Bell. Without him as the lead, I don't know if it would have made this tier, but I'm going to put this on the okay tier because he blew me away. He was so good in the movie, and because of that, I had a good time watching it. Definitely needed more from the story, but I got just enough. The next movie is actually translated in English to read Cities of Last Things. One of the worst, I guess it was a translated title, but one of the worst titles I have seen for a movie all year. So I see that title and I'm going into this film like, what in the world is this about? And one of the reasons why I didn't put a review on my channel, it is a Netflix film, is because of the fact that no one ended up watching this movie. But you know what? I enjoyed it for what it was. You know, it really did surprise me. It's about a guy and this turn of events in 3 eras, 3 seasons, 3 nights in the same city, but the film is told in reverse. It starts out at the end of his story and it tells its way to the beginning of the story, and it does it in such an interesting way that provided this movie a lot of depth. I think a lot more depth than it would have gotten if it was told in the average way that we're used to seeing films like this. And even though the story I think could have been fleshed out more, the acting was okay. There were certain storylines that I think were a complete waste of time, but the way that this story was told, and really our lead in the middle, and then I guess our lead at the end who is playing the same character, that's what sold it for me. And I actually thought The Cities of Last Things was an okay movie. It's on Netflix right now if you want to check it out. Next up is another film that I missed and then I saw in July. That is Teen Spirit. And you know what? Teen Spirit was another one that we're going to keep the trend. We're going to keep putting all these movies in the okay tier. Teen Spirit is one that I wanted to like more than I did. I think Elle Fanning is awesome. It is basically behind the scenes of what happens to the contestants not in front of the camera during something like A Voice or an American Idol. This is their country's version of that, and it really just tells her story as she progresses as a human, her relationship with someone who helps her out along the way, her manager, and that entire thing was fascinating. It was interesting. The movie itself didn't capture it in the most intriguing way. I wasn't on the edge of my seat. I wasn't learning as much about her as I needed to, but it was still interesting enough, and Elle Fanning was awesome in the movie, and that's why the movie itself is okay. Next up, we have Point Blank, and you guys know how I feel about Point Blank. It's the brand new Anthony Mackie and Frank Grillo Netflix movie that I just thought was meh. I wanted so much more from it than I actually ended up getting. Their performances are good, and their chemistry is what sells the movie, is what carries the movie. The action was okay. It's the choices, it's the decisions, what's going on in the background. That's what I didn't buy in the film. The song choice felt awkward and off at times. The shots were just uninteresting on occasion. The way the movie was edited together, it's more of a technically bad movie than acting, script, narrative, all of those things, even though the script and the narrative really did not impress me all that much. Like I said, Anthony Mackie, Frank Grillo, they carry this movie, and it is fun in that sense, but I can't get it to that okay tier just because of all of those mistakes that I just talked about. One movie that really surprised me, and this may go down as one of the more surprising films of the year for me, just because I knew Hotel Mumbai was coming to theaters. I knew it would be a pretty good movie. I'm like, yeah, that looks interesting. Dev Patel, he's an awesome actor. This film blew me away. If this is one that you missed earlier in the year, finally got to see it, I would recommend this to almost anyone because Hotel Mumbai ended up being a great movie for me. I loved it. It went into my top 15, top 20 of the year just like that, and I didn't even get to see it on a big screen. Seeing this on a big screen probably would have enhanced that experience. Seeing this on the big screen probably only would have enhanced that experience. It's all about a terrorist attack that happened a few years back where a lot of people were killed, and there are just people, individuals that are helping out other people. You get to see all of their stories unfold. Armie Hammer is also in this movie. It is so well directed. I have a few story flaws here and there, but overall a massive surprise. One of the bigger surprises in 2019. The next movie we're talking about is going on the exact same tier, and that is The Art of Self-Defense. I just reviewed this a few weeks back with Jesse Eisenberg, who gives a magnificently understated but still a performance that kept me captivated throughout the entire thing. It's just about a guy who comes into his own, discovers that he's not going to be treated the way that he's been treated before, and it really does just tackle themes and motivations of characters that we don't see in movies nowadays. It's a very artistic film. Some may see it as a bit too slow. I found it interesting and intriguing. And the dark comedy aspect. The movie is funny. It's not laugh out loud funny, but it is chuckle funny, and it does have some things in there that you're like, yeah, that's really smart, and I'm glad that they did it. Next up, we're talking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and that is on the awesome tier, absolutely. Guys, the more I think about this movie, the more I probably would up my score at this point. Not to a 10 out of 10 range, still in the 9 out of 10 range, but maybe a bit higher. Listen, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is one that I want to go back and I want to watch again. And again and again. Yes, it's long. It's Tarantino being Tarantino, doing his Tarantino things. If you watch my tier list, I talked about him. He is a director that is fascinating, and he's making movies that we don't get nowadays. Even if you find it too slow, if you find it self-indulgent, which I kind of find it both of those things, but just kind of, because I thoroughly thought this movie was awesome. The performances are some of the best I've seen all year, and it is one that I've not stopped thinking about since I watched it a few days ago, and that's a testament to good filmmaking. We have Stuber next up on this list, and let's just keep bringing out that okay tier. We're gonna stretch it for miles and miles because it just felt like July. Every single movie was either underwhelming, a bit better than I thought it was going to be, or it was, yeah, that was good. I would recommend it. And Stuber is another comedy that, sure, most critics didn't love it. Humor, and I always say this, comedy is subjective. If you find something funny, I may not find it funny, back and forth. It's all about how it makes you laugh. Then it's the story, the characters, and the plot. This movie made me laugh more than I thought it would. I believe the jokes were more 50-50 than they intended on them being because Kumail Nanjiani, he goes for it. Sometimes doesn't quite get there. Sometimes he really gets there. But at least they go for it. Dave Bautista's really good in the movie. Their chemistry carries it. I enjoyed the film. It was fine from a story standpoint. Predictable, all of those things, but I did laugh, so it goes on the okay tier. And the final movie that I am going to talk about today is Yesterday. It's the movie centered around the Beatles. It is one that I did not get to watch when it first released. My review came out about a week after the film, but you know what? After hearing, it's underwhelming, it's disappointing, it's not very good. I really enjoyed Yesterday. I'm not going to sit here and say it's an awesome movie or even a great movie. Now, maybe when I watch it again, it will blow me away even more than I thought it would the first time, but I thoroughly enjoyed Yesterday. It's fun. And Danny Boyle, that's what he knows how to portray on screen. Even though I wanted more from the story, I thought Kate McKinnon was very much over the top, and certain characters did not work or even fit for me in the story. But our main storyline, the romance, Lily James, and our new main actor who was really good in the role. And the music, one thing I was very worried about, it did exactly what I wanted it to do, and it affected me in the right way, guys. I thought Yesterday was good, and I would recommend it for you guys to check out, and that is it. That's the tier list. Now we move on to the ranking portion of the video where I take all of these movies and I place them in the order that I think they deserve to be in. And we start with Secret Obsession is obviously at number 18, at number 17, Kidnapping Stella at number 16, Point Blank. Then we come into number 15, and we're going to have to start switching some things up. I am putting Gloria Bell at 15, keeping Stuber exactly where it is at 14. At number 13, I am placing Skin at 12, right where it needs to be, Teen Spirit. At 11, I'm going to move this a bit and put Lion King at that spot. Then we enter our top 10 of July. Cities of Last Things. Oh, that title comes in at number 10. Then, of course, Batman Hush at number 9. At number 8, exactly what it needs to say. Yesterday at number 7, I have Crawl. I am putting Crawl at the 7 slot, and that means the Mustang is at number 6. At number 5, looking good to me so far, The Art of Self-Defense. At 4, Hotel Mumbai. At number 3, my third favorite movie of July, Spider-Man Far From Home. At number 2 is Midsommar, and my number 1 favorite movie of July was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It was everything I wanted it to be, and that's why it tops my list just barely. Barely. over Midsommar. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you want to see and keep up with what I'm seeing every week, every month on Letterboxd, that link is in the description. You can catch up on all of my lists. I have probably like 200 on there, and I'm constantly logging and reviewing movies in written form if you don't like my videos as much. And then later on this week, a lot of things happening. It's a Fast and Furious kind of week. We have a tier list coming out, and of course, all of the Netflix reviews that we're normally putting out. You guys are the best. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you very soon.